Okie dokie. Let's just get started. It's weird like having you two at the other end of the table because I've got, hello, because I've got people on the screen and then the two of you. I think this connector thing doesn't work anymore, so.
We need a new cable.
Well, it should be easier for you to project because you only have to talk in one direction.
There we go. There we go. The thing I'd love to do today is just to ask, what questions have we not covered today? What have we not covered in our class that needs to be covered?
What is involved in the actual Beit Din? Because you mentioned it was an oral exam, and we have to sound out Hebrew. Speak out, read it basically.
Aha.
So, I don't know what I'm tired. I forget the technical term for it.
What is involved in the Beit Din? Fantastic. That's a great question. All right. Mark, do you have any questions? Lingering questions?
I'm sure something will pop up.
Think about one question about Judaism. Anything.
I thought you had a prayer question.
I did, but now I forgot.
Okay. Well, while I'm answering.
I knew it was something to do with choreography, but I don't remember.
How do you tell the choreography of prayer?
Oh yeah.
Oh, how do you tell the choreography of prayer?
Did you know, like,
when to do what?
Osei Shalom, like after the mourner's Kaddish, there's the in between certain prayers you bow. Some people bow, do this thing. Some just, or then there's the me that's like, okay.
Great. Love that question. And then Eddie and Mara, I'm going to challenge both of you to type in a question as well. And that's what we'll start out with. And then if anybody either in the room or online has more than one question, this is the time. I mean, any time is good time to ask a question. But before I answer those questions, I'm definitely going to turn on the air because it's definitely not on right now.
Everyone's AC.
Well, this is kind of what my apartment feels like right now, so.
Toasty.
Yeah, like not by choice either.
Actually, Matt, in the last few months, I forgot to say, his energy bills were getting really, really high, like hundreds of dollars high. He didn't know what the heck was going on. Apparently, his AC broke in such a way it was heating and cooling simultaneously, so doing nothing but burning through electricity. I know, that was like nightmare because it cost like so much money. And his apartment hit like 110 at one point. It was madness.
Oh no! How did he and Bagheera like?
I think he had to put Bagheera in the coolest room in the house. It was still pretty hot, and then get an emergency handyman to get it fixed several times.
All right, it has been fixed. Great.
You have a Lex cap on. You have a Lex cap.
I do have a Lex cap. Aha. Is there somewhere we can find the order of daily morning, afternoon, and nighttime Jewish prayers? Perfect. That's another wonderful question. All right. What is involved in the actual Beit Din? Question number 1. Emma asked that. So the Beit Din, just for zooming out context, any Beit Din is a group of three Jews who can act as a witness to something. For a Beit Din in the process of conversion, that's usually three very educated Jews, and it's often 3 rabbis. So for the purposes of what we do at Agudath Achim, we kind of have 2 options. Right? One option is that we can decide on this as a group. I think we talked about this already, but as a group, we can decide, do we want to go an hour away and do mikvah in Caddo Lake, in an actual nice, clean part of the lake without alligators or without reported alligators. And then if that was the case, we would probably bring a couple of community members to be on the Beit Din. So that's option number 1. I've never done that here, but I've used that lake as a mikvah before. And then the last 2 times we did Beit Din in this congregation. We went to Dallas. We made a big trip out of it. This past time, we all stayed overnight somewhere. I mean, we stayed out overnight in different places, but we all stayed overnight, and everybody made a vacation out of it.
With my little eye, a very long way. You played I Spy with my little eye.
Right, very long car trip, and it's a great opportunity too for, I know that some people, I don't think we have anybody like this in our community, but some people are in this group, but the last time and the time before, we had people who had never been to a big city before, so it was fun. You know, you get to go to Dallas for the first time. And we celebrate together at a kosher restaurant, and we have 2 Dallas rabbis and me, or if you'd rather, Rabbi Feivel, as the third on the Beit Din. Because, like in any court situation, right, both Rabbi Feivel and I can't be on the same Beit Din because it's too conflict of interest, right? And this will most likely happen. The next one will happen February, March, probably, of next year. We'll figure out when best works for everybody's schedule. I would say January, but I'm not going to be here in January, so February, March of next year, most likely. And what is a Beit Din? Beit Din is, like you said, an oral exam, but it's not, it doesn't have to be, I should say, it doesn't have to be as nerve-wracking. Right? Basically what we'll do is before the Beit Din, everyone will write their spiritual autobiography. We'll write an essay about their Jewish journey, and I'll help you go through a few drafts of that to make sure that it's really something that you feel proud about. We send those into the Beit Din, so that includes me and the 2 other rabbis, or 2 other community members if we do it on the lake. And basically we ask questions about you. So let me see, I have a book in here that might have some sample questions in it, but usually we don't go expressly from the sample questions. So let's see. This is, which is this?
About the lakes coming from Africa with crocodiles. I know alligators are not crocodiles, but I'm terrified.
Great. So if everybody's okay with it, it's not so deep.
Okay.
But if you'd rather, because this is what we've done the last couple times, we can be in a mikvah, which is like in an enclosed facility. It's basically a small room with a hot tub. And small room with a hot tub, I would be witness for the women, unless you'd rather have somebody, another Jewish woman, be there in there with you. Rabbi Feivel would be witness for the men, unless you'd rather have another Jewish man with you. And we would, so with one witness, we can do that. So for the Beit Din portion, we would ask questions like, what is your favorite holiday and why? Or, you said in your essay that your love of penguins brought you to Judaism, right? What is it about your love of penguins that...
add that to yours.
They're short? Sorry.
Great.
Stereotypes, but...
Well, your rabbi happens to be short, so that's okay.
Talking about cultural stereotypes.
So...
I can't with you today.
Sorry. You thought my grandfather was short, you know. Short but stout.
Right, so what was it that brought you to Judaism? I always like to start with, tell us a little bit about yourself. Right? Or, so what's your favorite holiday? What are you still working on? What haven't you accomplished yet Jewishly that you still are working towards? What does your Shabbat practice look like? What does your practice of keeping kosher look like? Those kinds of questions. And I haven't had a situation yet where we've ever had to say no to anybody. I try to make sure when I'm bringing people to Beit Din that you're ready. Like if I'm gonna, support you coming to Beit Din and doing mikveh and doing all of that, I'm gonna make sure to really only bring people who are ready to be there. Which is again why I always like to have a full year of from the moment you start learning to.
It feels kind of like Abigail. I'm gonna butcher her name. Pogrebin. She wrote the book My Jewish Year because she's been Jewish, but wanted to really experience all the holidays, and the only difference is we didn't journal them, but
Mm-hmm.
there was some good stuff in there.
Right. I've heard that's a great book, My Jewish Year.
It really is, actually.
Okay. So I have to read it. I still need to do the Sarah Hurwitz. Is it Sarah Hurwitz? What is it called?
I'm just gonna need you to
Oh,
make me a reading list.
Here All Along.
Hmm.
So, and I can print out a reading list that you have to add to it because you know books that I don't.
I've been trying to do that more than watching TV.
Good.
Just because, I mean, I love TV, don't get me wrong, but
Good. Right.
I'm going to change some things.
Were there some questions in your Beit Din that were interesting to you or that you remember?
One of the main reasons, well, like you said, like what brings you here? There was a question about what we covered in here was what was something that you really liked about your journey,
Mm-hmm.
and what was something that was your least favorite, and how can you know, you don't want to throw anyone under the bus or throw in a situation,
Yeah.
but it's a good gauge.
Right. What are you still uncomfortable with,
Yes.
if anything, right? What are Jewish values that guide the way you live? Those kinds of questions.
Where were you then? Where were you now?
Great. Wonderful. Also, so at the end of the Beit Din, and we usually do this with everybody all at once, right? At the end of the Beit Din, we'll go through a series of yes or no questions. The answer to all of them should be yes, and I'll make sure to go through all of those questions with you before we go, right? It'll actually be one of our first, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but after this class, our next step in learning together will be Hebrew for some of us, and also I'd like to meet with each of you once a month, and for that next step, we'll one of the first things I'll show you is that list of yes or no questions. Just making sure that these are questions that you feel like you confidently could answer yes to.
Is that about like values or do you have a different set of questions?
Let me see if I have this here.
For example, like over there, some of the questions before completing is if you have children, do you promise to raise them Jewishly? Do you promise to go by this covenant of, it was some basic things that you covered in there, but it was more like
Right.
Just a kind of a reminder, and if you're gonna turn back, here's your chance.
Exactly. So let me see if I can find this. Life cycles, because I have it in another book in the other room.
Yeah, because when you say oral, like exam to a doctor, it's pretty nerve-wracking because you get flashbacks to our oral exams, which is being grilled basically.
No, it's not. It's not anything like to that degree.
With a clipboard, someone like fail you. It's terrifying.
Right.
I think, isn't it more
Here
to
we
make
go.
sure that you're genuinely into this and not, somebody is coercing you or you're doing it for
Exactly.
like it's the thing of the month to be different or something.
Exactly. And that's again why we take so long, is that so that you're actually sure that you want to, go through with it.
If it's just a fad or a thing of the month, you're going to lose interest within, I don't know, however long that goes on.
Right. So let's see. So this paper that I'm looking at is basically a written document version of all the questions, but I can read it to you. The questions will be: do you accept the Torah of Israel and embrace her mitzvot? Do you commit yourself to a lifetime of learning and growth, of constant striving for a deeper connection with our tradition? Do you freely leave behind commitments to any prior religious faith or practice? Do you pledge to establish a Jewish home? And this makes it fancy, but if children should be brought into your care, do you pledge to raise them exclusively in the Jewish tradition by entering them into the covenant of Abraham with appropriate and timely ritual, providing them with an ongoing Jewish education, and imbuing in them a love of Jewish practice and values? And that's again why kind of one of the things, even though I'm supportive of people with partners who are not Jewish, I always want to make sure to ask that question of whether you feel committed to raising a child exclusively in the Jewish tradition.
Would you need to meet Matt again just to because I mean I've spoken with him and he's been happy with that, but would you, because he's happy to meet with you, he did say like
Great.
he wants to like ask me a few questions.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
I'd love
I
to
have
do
questions for him.
Just have a grill Matt day.
Yeah. He was terrified of the temple. He told me afterwards, he's like, I was so scared.
He was.
What did he think about it?
He liked it, but I think because again of the Catholic flashbacks to terrifying nuns, so he kind of thought, and he was like, oh, okay, no one's yelling at me with a ruler.
No rulers.
Only on alternate. No.
No rulers, just puppies. Although Jax was very scary at the beginning. He was a little terrifying. So,
he's so cute.
huh? I'm glad. Thank you. So,
will there be gavels?
Will there be gavels? There will not be gavels. So the other ones are, do you pledge to strengthen your Jewish observance by active participation in a synagogue and to give of your time, energy, and resources to the worthy endeavors of the organized Jewish community? There's a question about Israel in there. And there's a question also about consent. Like, are you doing this of your own free will and volition? So those are the yes or no questions. The answer to all of them should be yes, and if it's not, then we'll talk it through beforehand so that you don't feel put on the spot. I have a horror story. A friend of mine, she's in her 70s. She was she converted to Judaism in Los Angeles probably 50 years ago, and was saying that she was in the mikvah and they asked her the Beit Din questions while she was in the mikvah, and it was a group of 3 male rabbis, and so they were behind a screen so they couldn't actually see her, and she had like a flowy dress on so they really couldn't see her. But they asked her a question that she just couldn't say yes to, and she lied, and she's felt guilty about it ever since.
Interesting.
Because she was surprised, they asked, are you willing, are you going to go through the whole family purity of going into a mikveh once a month and not having sex from this time to this time? And she knew her husband too well, right? And so because she was surprised by the question and actually needed to think about it, she had to lie and say yes, and felt coerced. So we want to make sure that it's a process that you're ready for and that won't be scary. It's more like a fun interview. And you get the job at the end. Right? There's not a whole lot you could say. There's some things you could say, but there's not a whole lot that you can say or that you will say knowing knowing you.
Satanist,
Right.
Like
If
we would call it the Beatles effect.
You bring up Satanism, Jesus, those are things maybe, murder, those are things maybe not to mention in your Beit Din.
Be like, this is not a Catholic confession, you can't say that.
Right. Right. Other questions about the Beit Din process?
Sorry to throw in Satanism. I just thought.
No, but that's a good example. Now you know.
The funniest way, like.
Right.
Don't even joke.
It's like saying bomb on an airplane, right? Probably, you can, but.
Oh no, but you're gonna get pulled. The sky marshal's gonna detain
Yeah.
you. It's gonna be a thing.
Right. But honestly and realistically, we'll be ready by then. Everyone will be ready. So that's Beit Din. Your question was, how do you tell the choreography of prayer? Mm-hmm. All right. I'm going to bring, from the other room, 3 different prayer books to show you a little bit how to do that. And then I think I have copies of 2 of them.
The choreography in general in the services, because I kind of learned the piece when I know the part when we're welcoming the Sabbath bride. Mm-hmm. Figured that part out. The Torah, from doing that a couple times, I figured that out, but I still get confused when we're in the Amidah.
Great. So I'm gonna go get a couple of prayer books because short answer is depends on the prayer book, and you listen to the person who's leading services, because really totally depends on what synagogue you go to for certain things.
Okay.
For certain things it's always the same, but
I know I use the red one, and sometimes it gives me instructions,
Yeah.
but sometimes it looks a little different than what you see others doing.
Exactly. Let me give you a couple.
Okay. The red one says one thing, and I think the blue one says another
I
thing.
have noticed like says bob your head at this part and stuff.
And I don't always bob my.
Well, the trouble is I read that, then I forget because I'm reading the prayer and I'm transliterating it. So, my brain is like calculating too many things and I have to, oh, shoot, I was meant to bob my head at this part.
You're like, no, no, no.
Yeah, sorry to bring up the Satanism thing. I'm not a secret Satanist. It just came to my head.
I'm going to inquire.
All right, so I'm going to challenge you, because I've got to find stuff on my computer for Mara and Eddie. Emma and Mark, can you find a Torah service, any Torah service, in each of the prayer books that you have in front of you? And I've got the High Holiday Prayer Book, which is a little bit different, but there's also a prayer book for Shabbat in this same format. Oh, I just flipped to it. Great.
There we go.
Great. Let me find this on my computer. Hmm.
139.
Let's see.
And what does Shema mean? What does Shema mean?
Shemo, his name.
Okay, because I hear people say that.
Oh, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo.
Yeah, at the end of things,
Uh-huh.
but it's not written in the prayer book.
Yes. Okay, that's another good question. Baruch Shemo.
And it's kind of weird to say it when you don't really know what you're saying.
Got it. So I'm going to add as a question, tell me more about the random exclamations people say during services. Because that's one of them.
Shemo is one, and I'm sure there's other, but I haven't quite picked up on them yet.
There are.
Or maybe, yeah, they haven't registered.
I'm trying to find.
I don't see any instructions so far. I know I've seen them though.
Shabbat
Well,
Shacharit.
Does the Amidah come?
Right at the end.
Oh, here we go. Nope, that's.
Of
Okay,
this
so that's
section.
this. And then. Alright.
Oh wait, yes. Well, no, that's meditation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a meditation that may be read aloud by the leader, and may be followed by the child of Lecha Dodai. Oh,
Dodi?
Dodi. That's. I knew it was. Sorry.
It's tricky.
What is it?
Dodi. Lecha Dodi.
Oh.
I was remembering. Yeah, actually, yeah.
I didn't know that tune before Lex was like, why don't we sing that anymore? I'm like, because I've never heard it, but teach it to me.
And then my other favorite thing of Lex's B'nai Mitzvah was when you two got up there doing the Darkwing Duck.
Actually wasn't Darkwing Duck.
It sounded so much like it. What was it?
I know it did. It was from some anime something that they
That's it.
found online.
Okay, they basically said, well, it sounds very similar to Darkwing Duck.
Does. Sorry, still trying to find a service, a Torah service. I think I'm close. Okay. Shbarach, Torah. Okay, here we go.
Isn't it on the prayer book? Isn't it on the website?
It is, but in a different format.
I thought
So
it was like,
I'm going to show some different
I
formats.
thought it was like this.
All right, so you've got Siddur Sim Shalom,
Mhm.
and I'm going to show this to the people online as well, just so that you see. But the two ways to tell how you can tell the choreography of prayer. Way number one is by looking at your prayer book, which may or may not be helpful. So one place where you've got a lot of choreography is the Torah service. When you see italic text in Siddur Sim Shalom, what does it say, Mark, at the beginning of the Torah service?
Well, it tells you, like, rise for the ark open. Is that what you're looking for?
Great, yeah. What does it say there?
We rise as the ark is opened.
We rise as the ark is opened. So I always learned to rise at the very beginning. Depending on the synagogue, you sometimes rise in the middle of the first paragraph, or you can rise in the same place that it says in Siddur Sim Shalom, which is kind of in the middle of the page, right? So it depends on what community you're in, but you know that whenever the ark is opened and whenever the Torah is standing up, which means somebody's standing up with the Torah, we all rise. So if the ark is open or the Torah is standing, we know that we stand.
While they're addressing it too. Or
Mhm.
Okay.
Right. But if somebody's sitting with it, you can sit down. And always, 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 if you're told to stand and it's too difficult to stand for whatever reason, health reasons, it's uncomfortable, please don't feel obligated. What's another bit of, what's the next? So the next bit of instruction is going to be the Safer Torah is taken from the ark, right? It's just going to be on one of the pages to come.
Yes, the Safer Torah is taken from the ark,
Mm-hmm.
and then it tells you read to the congregation.
It tells you, okay, the reader says this, and the reader and the congregation says this together, etc., etc. What makes this Siddur difficult? What makes it difficult to follow the choreography in this particular Siddur? Or does it make it difficult?
Well, this one, so far, let me look a little further. Like, okay, so I can follow the pieces that's saying before, after, like how we're supposed to respond or do responsive reading.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it has transliterations, but in using this book versus the red book, it's not all in transliteration, so sometimes I get lost.
So that's the reading. The transliteration is weird because sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. But with the standing up and the sitting down, stand up, sit down, fight, fight, fight,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it tells you to stand, but sometimes it doesn't tell you to stand, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's very selective. That's what I find difficult about Sim Shalom, is it's selective not only in its transliteration, but also in its explanation of what to do. I haven't really looked at Eight Ratzon. What do you think about Eight Ratzon?
It's a little confusing. Like, for one thing, the Torah service, it gave me a page further along, so I had to go back to find the part where it actually opens the
Lovely.
Torah. And then it's like a little clear because it's repeated the same instruction over the different languages, but in English. So over the transliteration, it says the congregation rises, the ark is opened.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's so that you can read in each one, but of course you would never be reading the full English section here, which is the translation of that. So it's a little.
I mean, there are times like, well,
Reform service, I guess.
If somebody is leading service, say, like if you're out, we may do some in English and some in Hebrew.
Right.
Now that one is actually, and Eitz Ratzon actually will tell you before certain places in the Amidah, it'll say,
yeah, that was where most of it was.
Take forward, take back.
Straighten up and out.
You're gonna bow or do it at this,
Great.
but it doesn't tell you throughout the whole service. Like there's some places where we could see you or others do things, but it doesn't always tell you like at the beginning of this break or every break.
Right.
I suppose because they tried to space things out so people could read who had vision issues. Because like if you're older, you have to space. So they kind of.
So in both Sim Shalom and Eight Ratzon, the spacing is kind of weird. The times they choose to give you instructions or not is kind of weird. If you so I'm looking at different page numbers in Sim Shalom, but in the version I'm looking at, doesn't tell you to rise before the Amidah, and Amidah literally means standing, so we should rise before the Amidah, and it doesn't tell you where to bow.
That's where I was getting
which
confused.
is really frustrating.
Yes.
Right? And so it just kind of becomes custom. It doesn't tell you to where to bob up on your feet, right? As opposed to, this is actually the same instruction, so I'm gonna try to find the Amidah on here.
I remember Herschel and someone having this conversation, and I don't know what the actual outcome of the conversation was because I was very confused.
Right. Trying to find in this particular. Well, that's so weird. Because it normally. Oh, that's the repetition of the Amidah. That's why. Sorry, I'm just trying to find a good example in this book. And even this book isn't great. Okay, so the Silent Amidah, this is not going to be the exact same Amidah, but this is Sidor Lev Shalem, or this is Machzor Lev Shalem. This is going to be the high holiday version, but they have a Shabbat version as well. This is the newest Sidor. So I'm going to try to find that I'm going to try to find the Amidah in the version I have here, and I would like you to name, while I'm trying to find, what do you find that's a little bit more detailed in this one in instructions than the others?
Well, it's explaining exactly what the Amidah is. Kind of like how you'll give us an explanation if somebody, just in case somebody is new or visiting.
What does it tell you about movement at the very beginning?
It's much more specific. Like I've lost the page, but I know the Amidah here. It's like we bow at this point, but it doesn't tell you when to rise. This one's saying rise on Adonai, like bow and rise at that point. This just tells you to bow at, but
right. So and there's a little symbol. There's a little bowy symbol every time you bow.
Oh, is that L?
That's that little L-shaped symbol thing.
That would be a whole lot easier.
And does it tell you, in this one, it tells you take 3 steps back and 3 steps forward, right?
Yeah, right at the top.
So what does it say at the beginning of that one?
Before the Amidah begins, it's customary to take 3 steps backwards as if we are leaving our familiar surroundings, and then 3 steps forward as if we approach God's presence.
Great, so it gives you very specific instructions, tells you where to bow.
The Etz Zon will tell you to do it, but it doesn't tell you why you're doing it.
Okay, so it tells you why also. The other thing I like about this is that the font is different and it's red, so that you can't miss it.
Oh, that's a whole lot nicer.
Yeah. Right. And when they do have transliteration, they make it a different color so that you know that the transliteration is there. It's imperfect because the transliteration isn't on everything, but it's still, when it is there, it's obvious when it's there. And when something is different, like let's say it's Shabbat Shuvah, you'll see in red, we only add this on this particular day.
That's where it gets a little confusing in this one, because it throws it in there. It changes the font ever so slightly, but if you're not paying attention to the key, it looks like it just blends in with an existing prayer. And
even so, this is still super flawed, because if you go to, you can't really see it in there because that's the, I think you're in one of the services where the Kedusha goes on at some different point in time, because this is high holidays. But the one that I have on the screen here, and I'll show you here, still imperfect. It does say the Kedusha is recited only with a minyan. That's what I like about this also, is that it tells you what stuff can be done on your own and what stuff with a minyan. But it doesn't tell you to bounce on your toes during the Kedusha when you go Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Right?
See, that's the other thing. I only know that because
other people do.
Well, I was told that like a few years ago too.
And that's actually way harder. And Zoom is good, obviously, because if you can't go, you can still kind of go. But with it being emptier, like human beings naturally kind of spread out a bit in a room. So like I'm often not looking, because I tend to for some reason go nearer the door. I don't know why. But I've noticed, like, if I'm not looking, I'm not paying attention, I won't see people. So when you're there, I start following you. But But
Good luck with that.
but yeah, often because I'm always like they're slightly out of eyesight, so that's one of the other things. Like
Right.
pre-COVID times, this probably was easier to keep up with.
Right. So basically, we've got 3 different ways to figure out how we do our choreography. One is following along in the book, which is imperfect because books are always imperfect. Everything's imperfect, but Sidurim have their great parts and their drawbacks. So look in the book is one. Number 2 is listen to the rabbi's instructions. I'm not going to explain everything, but I might say, we rise here, or turn to page whatever here, right? I'll give page numbers, I'll give when we rise, when we're seated. Sometimes if I notice that there are people in the room who look confused, I'll give more detailed instructions.
I'm usually the confused one.
You are not the most confused one.
But you'll see me make a face going.
And also, I want to reiterate that there are lots of people who are in the room who are confused, who have been coming to services for decades and decades and decades, right? That just because it's been a year of learning about Judaism or 5 or 10 years of Judaism does not mean that that you're any less knowledgeable than the other people in the room. It's important to know. The third way that you've already picked up on, both Emma and Mark, to figure out how choreography works during the service is to look around, because every congregation is going to do it a tiny bit differently. Every congregation is going to choose to rise for Kaddish, for different Kaddishes, and be seated for different Kaddishes. You'll notice that when Rabbi Feivel and I are leading the service, we will tell you to stand up and sit down for certain Kaddishes that the other one won't, because we each have our own traditions. Right?
Okay.
So I've got to like loiter behind people, like just lurk. Because I tend to like spread out. So
You're lurking.
yeah, I'm just going to scare them by like, I'm just going to go behind all
Yeah.
these.
Please do, and know also that there are certain people in the services, like Elliot, loves to help out with that kind of stuff.
Well, one of the things I noticed is Vishamru.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at Kala, one of the members actually lived in Israel for a while, or was from Israel, and the Shamroom, when they go Shabbat, they like bounce up on their toes.
Right. That's just kind of a dance move.
Yeah, and I thought it was fun, and I catch myself doing it here, and then I'm like, nobody else is doing that.
I can if it'll make you feel better. So other basic rules to know is that for a Kaddish, if you're confused, anytime where somebody says Yitgadal v'Yitgadash Shmei Rabbah, or Yitgadal v'Yitgadash Shmei Rabbah, or Yitgadal v'Yitgadash Shmei Rabbah, if you're in doubt, number 1, look around. Number 1, listen to Rabbi. Number 2, look around. Number 3, if you're really confused, just stand up, because it's never wrong to stand up during a Kaddish. Anytime we're starting an Amidah, we're standing, because Amidah literally means standing. So if we're in a very, very long repetition, there will be a point in time that I might say, please be seated. But if nobody says, please be seated, then you stand up for the Amidah, especially for the entire silent Amidah, you're standing. So Amidah is always standing. Anytime that we're bowing for anything, we're standing. And when the Torah is up, we rise. When the Torah sits down or is put down on a table, we're seated. Yeah.
If you like, like I find pregnancy and stuff like it, and like if you couldn't stand, would you still try to bow in your seat, or would you just not? You would sort of just go through.
And you've seen that, like, sometimes recently, even in the parts of the service that are traditional to stand, even if I'm leading services, I'll still sit down for certain times if I'm getting dizzy or something, right? And some people who are not able to walk up to the bima will bring a microphone over to them so that they can read out loud.
Standing up and sitting down, sometimes you'll see me fall over. I'm like, okay, reorient myself.
Yeah, if you feel like you're too dizzy, right, you can always stay seated.
It can be quite hypnotic though, like almost rhythmic when you get into it.
It
A couple
is.
times like that.
right? I don't know about you, but for me, I'm not a person who can sit still. And so the standing up and sitting down keeps me awake.
Oh yeah, that's actually really practical. I never thought about the practical thing, but yeah, they must have, especially, I don't think every temple, like Church of England, has notoriously uncomfortable seats. They're awful. Just bad memories.
There we go. Well, hopefully ours aren't too uncomfortable.
No, I've never had a problem with those. I don't know what was wrong with the seats in England.
Yeah.
But,
No, the ones here have been fine.
yeah.
Other than I snapped my finger in
no.
it one day during service and went.
Not good.
Well, that makes sense when
Okay.
the services were first sort of structured, that they would, why you would do it. Stretch everyone's legs out.
Yeah. All right. Eddie's question. Finally, we're at Eddie's question, if Eddie's still present. Is there somewhere we can find the order of daily, morning, afternoon, and nighttime Jewish prayers? I believe there's a little diagram that's in the textbook. I don't know what page, but it's in the prayer.
Prayers.
It's in the prayers section.
Prayer and Kever and Kavanah.
Let me try to find it. Here we go. Class 6 prayer.
082 for us.
082. So what is this? Chapter 6?
Yes.
What? Which page?
82.
82. Yeah.
There we go.
It's made it 082, and then I was like, oh, I didn't think to drop that leading zero.
Great.
Where is that diagram?
So it's 82 in yours, 86 in mine, I think. You might have an old version.
Which one are we looking for?
So the one that says Keva, the structure of prayer. So really, really basic outline, just to go over what 86.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 86 in mine as well. Just to go over this one more time, because I know we went over this a couple months ago. Every service is going to have a warm up, the Shema and its blessings, the Amidah. Torah reading happens in the mornings and then sometimes afternoons. I'll explain that in a little bit. And then some concluding section. Right? So I'll just go over how that works with each of these services. You're welcome to write notes or just to listen. But for Mariv, for the evening service, on weekdays, the intro, the warm-up is literally V'hu rachum yechaper avon v'lo yashchit v'hir bal hashiva po v'lo kol chamato Adonai Hoshea hamelch ya'aninu v'yom koreinu. And then we do the Baruch, which is the call to prayer, and then we go on. So that's the whole warm-up, is like that one line in the Baruch. Actually, Baruch counts as part of the Shema. But on Friday nights, we have a whole bunch of Psalms.
So weekdays are shorter?
Weekdays are shorter.
Oh.
All
so
weekday services are shorter.
How long would they normally last? Like
if you are first starting out, it might be 20-30 minutes.
Okay.
But after a while, like now it takes me about 7 to do weekday evening services.
Oh, okay.
Weekday morning services are longer, but I can give you, I don't know whether, maybe I gave it to the other class. I have an outline of morning services that I can send to everybody. And it's, the outline kind of shows how you can make morning services 45 minutes, an hour long. You can also make morning services 20 minutes long, right? So it just depends how much time you have and how much time you need in the morning. And I can send that to everybody. So Mariv is going to have that warm-up on Friday night, at least. It's going to start out with a bunch of Psalms, which actually usually takes up most of the service. Then we have the Shema and its blessings. So there are going to be blessings in the evening. There are 2 blessings before and 2 blessings after. There's, we're going to talk about creation, revelation, and redemption. And then in the evening we also have peace. The center point of the Shema is going to be the Shema itself and the 3 paragraphs that come after. So Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, and then the 3 paragraphs that come after that. That's Shema and its blessings are just in the evening and morning.
Evening and morning. Okay.
Evening and morning. Because what is it? When you lie down at night and when you wake up in the morning, right? When you're lying down and when you're rising up, is the easy way to remember. So Shema and Shema, everything having to do with the Shema is only evening and morning. So again, evening prayer, warm up is either that one line or all of the Psalms. Shema and its blessings are going to be mostly the same between Shabbat and weekday, except on Shabbat we also add Vishamru because it's fun. Vishamru, do, 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 do. And in between each part of the service, we've got Kaddishes. So anytime you hear Yit Kadal v'Yit Kadash in any tune, yeah, that's just basically saying, moving on.
Okay.
Here's something different. Right. Amidah in the evenings is just silent. We just do the Amidah silently in the evenings. On weekdays, the Amidah is going to be the same, mostly the same morning, afternoon, evening.
So like Friday night, like Shabbat, that's when we do the Amidah silently?
Right. So just Friday, on Friday night, it's just silent.
Okay.
No Torah reading on Friday night. And then the conclusion is going to be on Friday night, it's Kaddish, or Kiddush, which is the blessing over the wine. And Aleinu and Kaddish are going to be the conclusion. And then we sing a fun song at the end.
It's always fun to listen to Mr. Elliott do the blessing.
He enjoys it, I think.
I enjoy it.
And he has a nice voice. Also on Friday evenings, there's like a little mini repetition of the Amidah, but it's not a huge significant portion. Right, so Friday, you've got warm-up, either one line or Psalms, Shema and its blessings, the Amidah, and then some concluding songs and things. Right. Every synagogue, whatever synagogue you go to, it's going to be, they'll do a Devar Torah in a different spot and in a different style. That's evening. Morning then is a lot longer, right? So whether you're weekday or Shabbat or holidays or whatever, your warm-up is going to be Psalms. At Agudat Achim, we start out with blessings, like morning blessings. Thanks God for giving me clothing and a house and a roof and an alarm clock.
That's a long list of the Baruch Atahs, right?
Yes. Thank you, God, for all these things. Right? Thanks God for Torah. And then we go into a whole bunch of Psalms. Now, this is one of those times where if we were to do all of the Psalms, then it would take a very long time, which is what I like to do when I have a long morning with nothing to do. I'll spend 45 minutes on Psalms.
Are we doing all the songs? Or
we are not. We're doing a couple of them.
Okay.
Right? We do a couple on Shabbat. But if I've got a lot of time, I'll sit there and read a bunch of Psalms.
Waiting for people to come in, we're stalling a little.
Right. Or, if we're praying on our own and we've got extra time, then it's a good time to do it. Then we've got the Shema and its blessings for the morning, which is the same Baruch Hu, and then Yotzer Or, which is creation, and then Revelation, God, thanks for loving us. The Shema and its three blessings, Michamocha, which is redemption, and it goes right into the Amidah. If we're davening on our own, only silent Amidah. If we're davening in a big group of people, then we do have a repetition in the morning.
You're counting the group of people 10, like a minion? Okay.
Right. If we have a minion, then we do a repetition. Torah reading happens on Shabbat, holidays, Monday and Thursday mornings. So if you'd ever like to get a group of 10 Jews together on a Monday or Thursday morning, then we can have that lovely experience of weekday Torah reading. It's a little difficult in Shreveport, but we can do it.
Especially getting off on like Friday to do like.
And then we conclude with Aleinu and Kaddish on Shabbat. We have an extra little service called Musaf because on Shabbat we have all the time in the world, so why not add another half hour into the service, right? So we have an extra additional service, right? So in that extra additional service, all that is really is an extra Amidah, all about the sacrifices that we used to give in the old days. Okay. So that's the morning service. Morning service, we've got Psalms, Shema and blessings, Amidah, Torah reading. If it's Shabbat or holiday, Musaf, which is the extra prayer, and then concluding stuff. That's morning. And then afternoon is really easy and really short. Your warm-up is the Psalm Ashrei, and then you go into an Amidah, just silent if you're by yourself, silent and a repetition if you're with a minyan, and then conclusion.
You had a resource that was good for hearing the Psalms.
For hearing the Psalms.
Or the songs that, like when we're singing, you said there was one that, there was a site or a resource that kind of follows closer to what we do here, I think.
Yes, so I've got a couple of different ones. Let me show you. I'll bring a couple of them up and then show you and show the people on here.
I forgot to write that down.
And another thing too is that I just threw a bunch of stuff at you, right? If you would like to have your own personal prayer practice, I am happy to meet with you and for one of our meetings together to figure out what's going to work for you for personal prayer practice. How in the world do I navigate this Siddur? And I do have recommendations for good Siddurim to start out with. But you're not alone with any of that. Just know that. All right. So if anyone online is looking at my schedule of what I plan to talk about today, and it's not what we're actually doing. So what was I looking for? Okay. Org. Okay. A couple of different sites. Okay. So one site, I find this helpful for service leading, but it can be good to just to learn about services in general, is hadar.org, and then you click Tefillah and music. Tefillah means prayer. And then if you want to learn how to sing different parts of the service or even lead different parts of the service, it'll have drop-down menus with different melodies on here. Right? And some of them are more creative than others, and some of them are easier than others to follow. But this is especially helpful if you're learning how to read the service or how to lead the service. If you want to lead Friday night service, here's where you go for some ideas.
And then you have parts where you get people to help.
Yes.
Rebecca or Alan have helped.
Right. And the best way to learn a service also is just to find me or find Rebecca if you want to learn how to lead a service. So hadar.org is great. And they have also wonderful, so they have prayer service resources also. So you can go to the Tefillah toolkit. And
what is that, Tefillah
toolkit? I don't know what in the world that is, but it's worth just looking around the website because there's a lot of resources on there. The other one, I think it's siduraudio.com. Let's see. Yes, siduraudio.com is great. And very easy to use. He is an old school conservative cantor with a easy to replicate voice. He'll walk you through how to, it again is mostly for service leading, but listening to him can be really helpful just in general. So for example, if you want to learn Shalom Aleichem, he'll show you the page in Sim Shalom, and then he's got his recording.
Shalom Aleichem, page 13. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet.
If you want to
We
learn.
just speed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except I have no idea how to get him to stop. Anyway, so siduraudio.com is a great website if you just want to know what are some basic ways to go through the service, right? But is there somewhere we can find the order of daily morning, afternoon, and nighttime Jewish prayers? Really, the answer is if you want to do your own private prayer practice, talk to me and we can really we can go through it. I really love some particular Sidurim to help out with that. And sometimes it's trial and error.
Are you missing a key?
Am I missing a key?
The up button, I noticed that.
Yes.
Oh.
But my computer's so old that there's not a key to replace it. So
Oh.
I figure, until my computer dies, I'll be okay with it.
How old
I
is
thought my brain was
How old is
just-
that?
It's not that old. It's like 5 years old-ish.
I swap mine out every 3 years.
Maybe 7 years old, something like that.
Wow.
I don't even bother swapping mine out. I just use my work computer, which created a problem the other day on that email chain.
I have not had a computer last so long. They literally die. I've had the blue screen of death.
Ooh, that's not good.
You don't want to know how long that one that I haven't pulled out of the drawer
Alright.
is.
I hope that was a little bit helpful, Eddie, but I'm happy to talk to you also if you want to meet and go through the Siddur. And whatever Siddur you have at home, we can find a way to go through it. And if you don't have a Siddur at home, I can help you find one.
I was gonna ask because I was gonna get this one so that when we're doing the Zoom thing I could follow. But then you mentioned that you were thinking of swapping to a different one.
Possibly.
Which?
I don't know when.
Yeah.
It was just something that was brought up when we were mentioning we were having a little trouble because this Siddur Sim Shalom it has some of the transliterations in it, but it's mostly the Hebrew written on it. It's either or English, and it has the responsive readings in it, which this one does not have the responsive readings.
And so what we would do is we would swap to everybody using the same Siddur, and it would be basically the Siddur, the Shabbat version of our High Holiday prayer book that you have on the table, the one with more of the instructions and explanations. Some people love it because it's got all those explanations. Some people don't love it because it crowds the page with all its explanations. So, but if we were to get another prayer book, that would be the one. And we would try to consolidate so that we don't have two different ones we're using. Oh.
Because we only have a few of these, right?
Right, we only have 5 of those.
That's why we fight over them.
That's why we fight over them, because we didn't know we would have so many.
Oh yeah, I noticed last time they stacked them outside.
Well, that was because of the B'nai Mitzvah.
Happy to do that again if that makes it easier.
And it kind of does, because especially if you're running a bit late, you sometimes awkwardly try not to drop the hunt around for it.
Great, good to know. So I'll try to remember to do that.
Oh well, no. As I left, I put mine back on the stack.
Okay.
So that's the thing. We just got to remember to put it back in the stack when we're done.
Good. All right. Oh, and so the other question was, tell me more about random exclamations that people say during services, or Baruch Shemo. Okay, so a couple different.
Baruch Shema?
Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, but then it's so fast that you just hear Shema.
Oh, I only hear Shema. Okay.
Right. So a couple of random things that we hear. I'm going to try to put them on the bulletin board. Okay. So this is almost like a vocab quiz.
That I'm going to fail.
No, you will not fail. What does Mazel Tov mean?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Great. Mazel Tov means congratulations. So if somebody has a bar bat mitzvah, or somebody got a new job, or something exciting already happened, Mazel Tov. In Hebrew, it's Mazal Tov, although you don't hear many Americans say that.
That explains more. Okay. Barbara says Mazel Tov.
Mm-hmm. Right, so that's Hebrew. You don't hear it very often, but...
What was the Mazel? A Mazel Tov? What was that again?
So Mazel Tov is congratulations.
But what is that more the Yiddish?
Mazel, yeah.
Okay.
Tov, congrats. Okay. If I want to say good luck, Behatzlacha. Good luck. You don't hear that very often, but it's a thing, right? 2 different ways to say Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, and do you know the other one? The Yiddish version, Good Shabbos.
Oh, Good Shabbos, which is the candles.
Ah, yes, Shabbos.
Is it O? Oh, yes.
So Shabbos is going to be in the Yiddish, and then Shabbos Well, actually, it's either Yiddish or it's the Ashkenazi pronunciation of Hebrew,
Okay.
which is a little different than we usually use the Sephardi pronunciation.
Okay.
What's the one? Yasher Koach.
Good job.
Great job. Yeah, Yasher Koach means great job. So you hear
Can
people.
you say that even whenever I like open, close, open? Little rabbit out there. Sorry.
Oh,
There's a
rabbit,
out there.
nice. Yasher Koach is a great job.
When I open, close, open, close, open, close the arc because I get the string mixed up.
Yes. Yasher Koach is a great job. All right, but what are you? The one that you asked about was Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo is the whole statement. So anytime somebody says Baruch Atah Adonai, if we were to be patient, I would say Baruch Atah Adonai, and you would say Baruch Hu Uvaruch Shemo. Right? Blessed are you, God, is Baruch Atah Adonai.
Okay.
Baruch Hu is blessed is He, or blessed is God. Uvaruch Shemo, and blessed is His name. Right? It's oh good, you're doing a blessing now. Baruch Atah Adonai. Yay, blessing.
Okay.
Blah 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 blah. Amen. So it's Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, and then at the end you say Amen. But
because I hear Rabbi Feigl say it, and I'll hear Howard's Howard and
a few different people will say it. Yeah.
and Bernard. He
Right.
says it.
So it's Baruch Atah Adonai, Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, da 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 da. Amen. But often it gets shortened to Baruch Shemo.
Ah, okay. The Baruch gets lost in
Yeah.
translation. I hear the Shmo.
Blessed is His name. So if you want to be fancy, anytime somebody says Baruch Atah Adonai, you go Baruch Shemo, da 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 da. Amen.
Should we throw our hands up too?
You can. Why not?
Just as long as you don't laugh and get sidetracked there.
Great. So that one was the core of the question. Fantastic. Any other questions before we move on to something entirely different? We may not get to Kabbalah today, but I think that's okay. All right. My question for you is, did you all have a chance to do the final review? You can give me an honest answer.
I think I forgot about it.
I didn't know we
Great.
had one.
Fantastic.
I still
wait.
have the mid.
I didn't write anything down, but I think I looked at this one.
Great.
I did do the mid thing, but I still on my table because I then missed the session.
All
Is that
good.
not right here, the final reflection?
No.
Oh,
So remember how the midterm review we had a whole
the whole
like a mini quiz sort of thing?
Oh, yes.
Great. So we're just going to do this together.
I don't know if I looked at it because this week
Great.
kind of went together.
So let's do it together.
Is it in the book? Because I don't know.
And then if you are either meeting with me monthly after this or happen to be a good friend who I talk to all the time, then happy to teach you about Kabbalah some other time. But let's just go through this together. And because it's a little bit difficult for Eddie and Mara to contribute, I'm going to put Emma and Mark on the spot here, and you guys can work together.
Oh yeah.
We
I
can
remember
figure
this.
out.
That was in the mid.
We can figure out the answers to all of these. And Mara or Eddie, if you have a question about one of them, please let me know if you have a question about one of the answers.
Oh, the food ones are really easy. Pav
Great.
is a food that is not meat or dairy. Let me see. Obviously, kosher is.
Unkosher strife.
Yeah.
Part is treif is unkosher. Kosher was ritual for eating. Okay,
Blessing before eating bread is hamotzi.
nice.
The series of blessings expressing gratitude after a meal. I know that because we do it.
Mm-hmm.
Brakat Hamazon.
Birkat Hamazon.
Birkat.
Nice. Oh, Eddie says shchita is kosher slaughter. Nice. And then we've got these two.
Fleischig is a meat product, not to be mixed.
Nice.
What is it?
For some reason, I really weirdly remember all the kosher stuff.
Oh.
Good.
Probably because it sounds a bit Germanic.
Well, Yiddish.
Ich
So
spreche
Fleischig
ein
is,
bisschen
yeah.
Deutsch. Yeah.
Fleischig is, is the Yiddish, and what is it in
I think it's Fleischig. It's,
Fleischig? Yeah, same thing with milchig, right?
or Fleischer. It's so similar.
Right. Flesh and milk.
Yes.
Right. Great. Questions, comments, concerns about all the kosher stuff? Great. In order to be potentially kosher, a fish must have these two features.
Scales throughout its life.
Scales. Ooh, throughout life. Nice. It's a good detail.
Yes.
And
Is it fins?
fins. Nice. Eddie and Mark both got it. Scales and fins. Nice. In order to be potentially kosher, a mammal must have these two features.
Cloven hoof and choose cud.
Nice.
Yes.
Cloven hoof. Choose.
The beam effect is getting me today.
Cud.
Also, you're a little farther away.
Yep.
It's a bit harder for you to read it.
Oh,
Right. I'm going to
yeah.
clear these.
We did a thing today. My eyes look tiny.
Oh, no. All right. Which birds are potentially kosher?
Not vulture because it's a bird of prey. You can argue.
Chicken is.
Mm-hmm.
I think technically ostrich is.
I think ostrich is one of those that's in the list of birds that aren't kosher.
We
Vulture
said
and ostrich are-
turkey's not technically, didn't we?
Because it's not specifically mentioned.
But we eat it anyway because it doesn't really fit into the category. Because a lot of the birds that are mentioned, most of the birds that are mentioned are birds of prey or are bats, which aren't birds anyway. And then what's the other one?
Goose.
Goose. Chicken, goose, turkey. All kosher if slaughtered the right way. What are some examples of foods that can never be kosher?
Pork.
Pork.
Great. Pork can never be kosher.
Ew.
Huh?
Ew.
Human, obviously.
Human can never be kosher.
Seafood?
Seafood. What do you mean by seafood?
Like shrimp and
Shrimp. Yep. Crawfish.
crawfish.
Alligator. Chicken
Uh,
parm.
Oh yeah.
Cheeseburgers. Especially bacon cheeseburgers. And the list goes on. Fantastic. Questions, comments, concerns?
Emotional outburst.
Emotional outbursts are okay too. Okay. Which of these is not a generally accepted hechsher? What is a hechsher first?
A symbol that is kosher,
Right.
certified by an organization, and the U is on a lot of things.
Yes.
I think I've seen the K, but I haven't. I don't think.
Oklahoma is the state kosher. It's not recognized everywhere, right? Or is that not even
Look a
one at
little
all?
bit closer. This is a trick. This is a joke question.
Are they all recognized? Or are they none of them?
Nope.
Oh, the rugby.
Yes, that's the OU. That's the Oklahoma rugby
Oh.
team.
I got it now.
Us
So
being-
The
not-
ones on the left are
Right.
Yeah.
actual hechshers.
Yes. Exactly.
It took me a minute to realize rugby is a sport, not a kosher symbol.
I just thought it was a particularly Jewish group of rugby players.
Oh, that'd be cool.
We're rugby
All right.
rabbis.
Here's a tricky kosher question. How do you kosher all of these things?
Oh, it's separate.
Uh,
Fire metal can be chucked in the fire. I remember that.
Chucked in fire. I don't see chucked in fire here.
That might be just like a more random specific thing.
Mhm.
Metals. I think metal is the.
Once
Darn it,
used,
there
it
was-
can be koshered by being immersed in boiling water. That was.
Wasn't that metal?
Mm,
I wanna say-
metal would survive
Mhm.
boiling water.
Exactly.
Ceramic is the one that if it's never been used, you can consider it clean. So I think that's the top one, but some Orthodox people say no.
Nope.
No, I'm wrong about that one.
So ceramic, once used, it cannot be kosher.
It has to be meat or dairy.
Right, unless you happen to have a kiln at your house.
That was where I was referring.
Unless you happen to have a kiln, but most people don't.
Yeah.
And even then, your plate might break. So, basically ceramic, if you eat a cheeseburger.
The pores in it?
Yes.
Or porous material? Yeah. Okay.
So if you, and wood is the same way. Like if you've got a bamboo cutting board and you put some, you put some hot,
Or you make cream cheese sushi of some kind.
cream cheese, well.
Or you've rolled in bamboo.
Well, except that something that old school rabbis don't want you to know, because old school rabbis don't like giving leniencies. The only thing that can make a dish dairy or meat or treif, that can make a dish, not food, but like a dish itself, is if the food is yad soledbo, if the food is hot enough that you touch it and bring your hand back. Right? So if you've got some sausage and cheese soup, and right out of the, you make it in the pot happens to be a ceramic pot, then can't use that pot again, right?
But if you're making one kid's cheese sandwich and another kid's ham sandwich on the same, well, not ham, but other sandwich on the same chopping board, there's assembling but not heating it.
As long as you don't melt it, right? Then you're okay. Exactly. It's not kosher to eat, but it doesn't trafe up your plate. And glass, if it's clean, it can be used for both meat and dairy interchangeably. It doesn't need to be koshered. Just because it's easy to clean. There we go. Metal, the other thing with metal is most metal can just be immersed in boiling water. If it's really difficult to immerse in boiling water, like it's huge or something, blowtorch. And you take a blowtorch and
or drop it in fire.
Or drop it in. Well,
if as long as it's all covered, like as you say, almost a kiln, because then it's all.
Yeah.
As
long as you can take it out.
Yeah, because when people use stoves in the house, like it would have been way easier to kosher everything, because they literally, that's how they just cook. They put the pot in the fire.
Well, in a lot of places too, like a lot of Jewish communities, they'll have these giant pots of boiling water that they'll bring out before Passover, and people will just stand in a line and dump all their stuff in the boiling water and take it all out, and then the next person in line will dump all their stuff in the boiling water and take it all out. So a lot of communities will do that. Also, like a lot of communities right before Passover will have a big bonfire, so that if you bring all of the chametz that you're not able to donate, like all the bread products that you're not able to donate, toss it into the fire so it all gets burnt. All right, we did not talk about Judaism in the Middle Ages, but
is that one we missed?
That is the 1 week that we didn't go through this.
Oh, okay.
But if you know any of these answers, let me know.
Well, we hear Rashi in 929. Let me see if I can find what it.
Isn't Rambam the greatest commentator on the Torah and Talmud?
He's a great commentator on Torah and Talmud, but that's not what we're referring to.
Would that have been Rashi?
That is Rashi.
Okay, because we usually defer to Rashi or
we defer. Right, his commentaries are always studied along with the traditional text.
And then we do Rambam. Or he's the second one.
Well, Rambam's a little different. So I'll explain, because we haven't learned this.
Rambam philosophy?
Yes.
Okay. So would that be the last one?
That would be the last one. So Rambam is both the author of the medieval period's greatest work of Jewish law, the Mishnah Torah, and the greatest work of Jewish philosophy, which is the Guide for the Perplexed. So we do learn a lot of Rambam, and we do talk about him a lot. Joseph Caro writes the Shulchan Aruch, which is where we get a lot of our halacha from.
We've mentioned Joseph Caro in 929 before. I just couldn't remember.
Probably. He also, I believe, wrote Lechadodi, so he was a poet as well, and a mystic. Moshe de Leon is the chief of the Tzfat mystics. We believe, or it is postulated that he actually wrote the Zohar, but under the name of Shimon Bar Yochai, who was a rabbi in the Talmud. Isaac Luria. Oops, sorry, I did that wrong. So, at least one of these men authored the Zohar.
Okay.
And Isaac Luria was the chief of the Tzfat mystics. And so when we talk about Kabbalah now, we're usually talking about Lurianic Kabbalah, so Kabbalah that has to do with Isaac Luria. But really the three names that are important to remember for our purposes, unless you become a Kabbalist, which go ahead, have fun. I can give you some good books on it. I just don't know very much myself. Actually, that's not true. I know things, but not a huge Kabbalist. But the big names to know from here are Rashi, again, great commentator on Torah and Talmud. Rambam, who is both a halachist and a philosopher. And Yosef Karo, who's a little bit later than Rashi and Rambam, but he writes the Shulchan Aruch, which is the most widely accepted code of Jewish law. So a lot of the stuff that we do today is a combination of Rambam and Joseph Karo, how they interpreted what the rabbis commanded us to do. Because the Talmud, if you've ever read the Talmud, is like a bunch of old men arguing with each other. So Rambam and Yosef Karo in their own separate times, and Yosef Karo really relied a lot on Rambam, but Rambam especially sifted through that and said, okay, here's what they mean. And so we rely on Rambam and then Yosef Karo after that.
It's like an introduction to Leviticus.
There you go.
They really were talking about Xboxes.
Xboxes? Was that the discussion this weekend?
I was very tired.
He works
And I
it all
still
in.
had COVID brain.
Oh,
And I was
no.
just very mad from work. And I was being snarky in all of my stuff.
Well, Leviticus is ripe for snark. All right.
I think Miss Sandra liked it. I don't know if Mr. Allen cared for it.
I don't know. All right, before the wedding ceremony, many brides and grooms have the custom to immerse in a
Mikvah.
mikvah. Nice. Whoop. Mikvah. All right. Some will continue to visit the mikvah on a monthly basis in accordance with the laws of...
Um,
Oh, that's a hard one.
I'm drawing a blank.
We can go back to it if you want.
I'm going to have to cheat here.
Let's go back to it because this is not...
I know the second one. Ketubah.
Great. The wedding begins with the signing of the marriage document, the ketubah.
We didn't use l'chaim on the other one. To life.
The chaim?
You know, when we were doing the vocabulary words.
Oh.
Yashikora, etc.
L'chaim. Great. That's when you're drinking something.
Yes.
Is l'chaim. Great. After this bride is veiled, in a ceremony known as the...
Dang it, I'm pretty bad at this.
Source your German
Oh, gosh.
and look at the list.
Oh, I forgot I had clues. Bedecken.
Bedecken. Right, literally, she's being bedecked. Bedecken. She's veiled.
We can do that.
The couple then stands together under the
Hoopa.
chuppah, where they will exchange rings. In the ceremony known as the, or as, and the word means sanctification.
Sheva?
Oh. Oh, sorry, we didn't.
Oh. No, I mean.
What's a word that means holy?
Kedushin?
Yeah, Kiddushin.
Oh,
So
that's what I'm staring at.
yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Anytime you hear Kiddush or Kadosh or Kaddish or Kedusha, always has to do with holiness or sanctification if you want to be fancy. The something something or 7 blessings.
That's the Sheva Brachot.
Sheva Brachot. How do you know that?
I think it's, I don't know, Sheva just making me think of 7, even though it's not Germanic, it's Sieben.
Right, but yes, Sheva means 7. Brachot, anytime you hear brachot, that means blessings. So think like Birkat Hamazon or Baruch Ata Adonai or Bracha. Anytime you have that root, that resh Chaf, which we'll learn the letters later. That has to do with blessing. Great. At the close of the wedding, the groom proceeds to do something.
So
Get.
break the glass.
Yes, to break the glass, and everyone yells,
Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov! Then, I'm not even going to write this because this one might be more difficult. The couple then spends a few minutes by themselves in...
Is it the get? I'm guessing. You can look.
It's the thing by themselves. Is the mishpah? No.
All right, we'll skip that for now. There's two more, sorry. If a Jewish marriage ends in divorce, the couple must take the step
That's
of
the get.
procuring a
The
get.
get.
That's the
Nice. Which must be presented in front of what was that group of three?
Beit Din.
Of a
Beit
Beit
Din,
Din in order to dissolve the union. Great. So the two words that we didn't know were Taharat HaMishpacha. The easier way to say this, though, the laws, in accordance with the laws of Taharat HaMishpacha, that means the purity of the family. But I'm going to put a word that isn't in the word bank. Easier way to talk about this is nida,
Oh, okay.
which is a kind of separation. And yichud literally means aloneness. So
Oh,
the
that's
couple
what it
gets to
was.
tip.
Because you
spend
guys
time
went
alone.
in. That's where you go in for like 15 minutes or something.
Mhm.
Okay.
Snack time. Or quiet time for us introverts. Great. Jewish life cycle. Let's try it. The Jewish tradition provides for ceremonies for the birth of both boys and girls. The ceremony for a baby boy is called a...
Bar mitzvah.
Bar mitzvah.
Not a bar mitzvah.
Oh, wait.
Bat mitzvah. I was right the first.
No, not a bat
Oh
mitzvah.
no.
A-
Brit
wait.
milah.
Brit
Brit
milah. Thank you.
We are
Brit
bad at
milah,
this.
which is often referred to simply as a...
Bris.
bris. Great. From the word meaning covenant. Again, that's the Ashkenazi Sephardi pronunciation being weird. All right. The ceremony takes place on the
8th day.
8th day of life and is officiated by a
Mohel.
mohel, or mohel in Hebrew. You're right. Often together with the family's rabbi. For baby girls, the blank ceremony.
The, is it the Simcha Bat?
Yeah, Simchat Bat. Sometimes just known as a baby naming, sometimes known as a Brit Bat. Lots of different names for that. Welcomes her into the Jewish people. At both ceremonies, children are given a
Hebrew name.
Hebrew name, which will be used whenever they are called to the Torah. That is also something that we'll talk about when we meet monthly. If you have an idea for a Hebrew name. Mark, you said you have a Hebrew name, but you're kind of iffy about it.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
So
I haven't really used it a lot, so I haven't I don't know if it fits.
great. When a Jewish child reaches the age of
13 for boys and 12 for girls.
nice, they become a
Bar bat mitzvah.
bar bat mitzvah. What do we say now when? Actually, there is not one answer to what do we say now with kids who identify as gender non-binary because it's very fluid.
B'nai mitzvah.
B'nai mitzvah is what Lex used.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes people will call it a brit mitzvah. I don't love the term brit mitzvah because people think about brit milah, and even though
It has a male connotation.
yeah,
to it.
it kind of has a male connotation, but that's kind of becoming the popular term for it. In less Hebrew-centric circles, it's a they mitzvah. So it just depends who you ask. Right? That's what they used in Sex and the City. They called it a they mitzvah.
Call it a what?
A they mitzvah.
A they. Okay.
Let's see. There's also a section from the prophets called the. Let me know if I need to go up.
Yes, please.
Okay, section from prophets called the
Haftarah?
Haftarah.
Okay.
When else do we hear Haftarah?
Haftorah, we hear it on
Definitely heard of it. I can't place it. Is it a Saturday morning thing?
Saturday morning
Saturday morning,
thing.
Yes,
There we go. Great. We've skipped one. They help to lead the prayer service and are called to the Torah for an
Aliyah,
Aliyah. Great. And deliver a speech called a
Devar Torah,
Devar Torah. They are then considered a Jewish adult and can be counted in a
Minyan.
minyan or prayer quorum and can wear ritual items including
Talit, and Tefillin,
yeah, talit and tefillin. Wonderful.
which is confusing to rap.
It's just confusing to rap, but I can always help. All right, death and mourning. First of all, I know that it's 8:29. Are you all? Do you have time or?
Yeah, we can,
Okay.
I can go.
All right. So let's match some things.
The funeral there. That.
I'm having a hard
Let
time
me
seeing. My eyes get tired.
zoom a little.
The funeral prayer that
Isn't that the Kadisha?
Oops, sorry.
The
Sorry.
can't say the
Trying
first.
Let
The
me.
funeral prayer is the Kadisha.
The funeral prayer is the Kadisha.
I think
no,
so.
that's the El Malay
Oh, okay.
Rahamim.
Yeah. El Malay Rachamim Shalchen Bamaromim. Great.
That one is. Oh, I should know this. You asked if we wanted to do it.
Mhm. If there's one you don't know, you can always go to the next one and trial and error.
The act of tearing a garment as a sign of mourning is.
These are hard.
Is it shoveling? No.
Shoveling is literally shoveling.
Shoveling, okay.
That's okay. Any idea what hesped is?
Why are these like.
Is that the
Hard.
the last thing, the community ways of showing respect?
Nope.
Okay, the 50-50 chance of always picking wrong.
What about shoveling? Where do you think shoveling works?
That's gotta be the last.
Yeah,
Oh.
shoveling is the community's way of.
Whenever they're going in
So-
before, because that's the one where they do the whole thing before a tractor or anything's involved.
Exactly, right. Shoveling. And then kriya is the act of tearing a garment as a sign of
Okay.
mourning. Hesped is the eulogy. And Chevra Kadisha is the holy society made up of volunteers who attend to a body following a death and perform the ritual washing and
I think I was
dressing.
tired that week because I didn't remember any of them.
It's hard because it's a lot of Hebrew. But now we know with this, we know, like before Beit Din, even though most of the questions are going to be about you, right, at the same time, you still want to go over the vocab so that you know the words to say when you're talking about the ideas you want to talk about. And we'll go over that before too.
Is this going up on the YouTube, right?
This is going up on the YouTube, and I'll send you the
link.
answer.
The tube of you.
The YouTubes.
I will send you the answers
Just
too.
because I feel like this is gonna be my cheat sheet session.
Exactly, right? Okay, so the following are the categories of relatives for which one is required to observe the rituals of mourning.
Spouse.
Spouse, yes. Spouse.
Parents.
Parents. The reverse of that.
Children.
Children. And then
Siblings.
siblings. Exactly.
Basically first degree.
Exactly. And knowing that if your parents die, then there's a more intense mourning situation. Alrighty. Then we match all of these things. This is, again, a lot of terminology. But whatever you know, we can go over.
Kaddish is the first one.
Kaddish is the first one.
Memorial service that takes place on Yom Kippur and during each of the Shalosh Regalim. That is going to be Yizkor. No.
Nice. Great. And you know that just because you come to services a lot, right? You know from coming to services over and over and over again, there's that year, right? You've been to services enough times this year that you're like, okay, Yizkor is this thing.
Anniversary of a death marked by lighting a special candle. Yahrzeit.
Nice.
The 7-day period of mourning following burial, in which mourners traditionally stay home from work and receive guests. That is 30-day period following burial, in which mourners may return to work but refrain from most leisure activities.
That's got to be the Shloshim.
Yeah.
Because unveiling is not Yiddish.
Right.
Or Hebrew.
Exactly. Unveiling is the ceremony where we literally unveil the.
We just did that for someone, right?
We did. For Maxine Levine.
Is that to make sure that they did die and you?
No, that's we're pretty sure they died, but the unveiling is just kind of. It's just kind of a ceremony saying, okay, this is the period. This first yahrzeit is over.
So you just have it covered the whole time for like a whole year?
Usually we don't actually get it engraved until later. But there's no law about that. It's just the ceremony is kind of done. It's kind of a final act of like, okay, this is what's on the stone. It's not just that waiting to see the stone, but this is what's on the stone. It's written in stone now that your relative died on this and on such and such date, in such and such place. It's kind of an act of recognizing the finality of it all. All right, I'm going to ask questions to. I'm going to ask questions to Emma and to Mark. Emma, I'm curious, as a member of the Jewish community, how do you relate to the idea of Zionism and the State of Israel?
Well, isn't Zionism the idea that the Jewish community have the right to live in that, you know, Israel and that part of the world? And that is the founding principle of Israel, though it's not strictly, you don't strictly have to be Jewish from the, you can, go by birthright, and if you have, like, I could technically apply because I've got the Jewish lineage, I think they do it on lineage as well as religion. So I know they have that in their constitution, that you can, there's a name for it.
Right of return.
Yeah, that's it. There's a specific name for it. And I relate to it because, of course, like, my family fled to some, South Africa and then had to flee to Zimbabwe because South Africa joined the war. So you can see the logic of there was nowhere to run to, because that was literally the experience of my family.
Right, that having a place to go to.
So was the pragmatic side.
Great. Wonderful. And then I think the last question, was there a last question? Oh, here we go.
Wait, Mark, what's your feeling on Zionism?
Pretty much the same, like having the ability to return and like support, I guess supporting Israel in a sense too.
What does that mean?
I don't know, that one put me on the spot.
So
I'm aware there's a lot I haven't read, because I'm aware there's like several versions of the history, because if you hear it from most of the Muslim states, they'll be like, you just stole the land, and then there are some sources that say, no, we offered the Muslim people there the chance to stay, but you said you'd murder them all along with us if they did. So apparently, like, some people are saying like 60% of the Muslim people there stayed and joined the Jewish state, and like 40% of them or something. Like, there's different. Trouble is, it's such a contentious issue. Everyone's saying different things and citing different stuff.
Right. So what's one way that we can support the State of Israel in a way that's acknowledging all the different possibilities?
Not joining in with the usual, like in England, they refused to let one opera group who studied in Israel to perform, like, at the opera house. So it was like, that kind of made a stink, because that's not done in the opera. You don't go and refuse to see You don't go make protests and get them banned from performing.
Mm.
In some ways, they also support like in monetary values, like helping like, or is that more like your Zadok?
Oh, yeah.
Tzedakah.
I stopped eating Ben and Jerry's when they refused to use some. They refused to. They were manufacturing part of their product in Israel, and then they were like, "No, we refuse to do that," and I stopped eating Ben and Jerry's. They weren't great anyway. No, it was them or Haagen-Dazs. One of them
It was
did
Ben
that.
and Jerry's.
Yeah,
Ben and
I was
Jerry's.
remembering quick because that's when I was like, okay, well, ice cream isn't that good anyway. So it isn't though. They've been out competed
They were good when
they started.
For a while.
for a while. So how about ending on a lovely note? I should have done it opposite, but Mark, how do you, as a member of the Jewish community, how does the memory of the Shoah affect your life today and values?
Well, one of the biggest things that caught me there was refusing to let. One of the biggest impact was, wearing your Star of David or something, just as a show of sign, like not letting or refusing to let anyone believe that Hitler like won. That obviously stood out. But the other piece is in supporting the community, like not standing by idly while others like continue to make threats. Like you're supporting. Hop in there with the good words, you. I'm gonna send my brain thoughts to you.
No, but I think that's good though. Don't stand idly by.
Don't turn the other cheek.
Yes. I think the whole piece on that is like we're putting that idea of like saving a life while we're saving all of ours.
Right. When we save one life, we save a whole world.
Yes.
Right. Anything to add or?
I mean, it's pretty much the same, and it's I think it's less of a demonstration to me because I've yet to see any direct anti-Semitism, though I'm sure it's out there. But I don't know, it's a bit different because the world I'm in is like LSU, which has like the pride flag floating outside of it. I mean, it has certain people who have said some problematic things I will not repeat because this is being recorded. but yeah, like I've been wearing the Magan. You've seen my Magan David that I've just because I don't care anymore, so I'm just doing it.
Yours is better than mine.
Oh, I still have to send you the Amazon link.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, but I've just been doing that, and everyone's been like, and no patients have complained because I do know someone else whose patients complained that he was gay. Yeah, that was yeah, yikes.
But it's that idea of wearing your Judaism on your sleeve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Quite literally. Right.
And then she has
A
bracelet.
A Shema.
Yes.
Yeah, I keep trying through. I can tell when it's upside down, but that's why I keep trying to remember myself that letters that.
Perfect. That's the way to do it. So on that note, next steps. So next steps are going to be again that we'll do Hebrew. We'll do a Hebrew class. I want to make sure that I'm meeting with everybody at least once a month, and I'll send out an email about that. Along with Hebrew, things that we'll go over in the next few months are writing a spiritual autobiography, and we'll talk about what that means.
I'm sure mine will change.
Mm-hmm.
It's been.
And it'll probably change in the next few months
years,
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember the God wrestling one. I was actually really going through some wrestling at that time, weirdly enough, and so I had different views at that time. No, it was really because I was feeling really cut off because the thing is, English history is so tied into English identity because we have so much of it, and Church of England is so woven into the literal, like the whole getting rid of the Catholic Church, and so I was going through some God wrestling of I don't feel that English anymore. What's going on? And then I was trying to link it back to why do I feel like I've betrayed someone?
Because until today, when you paid for dinner, you were saying that you were slacking because the English in you wasn't fighting to pay your part of the tab.
Yeah, there was there was that point, and then but yeah, I kind of went through this little thing of like I felt like I was somehow less English, and then kind of went it's a bit silly because it's not like I can't ever go and it's like I'm not Catholic either, and Catholicism was a big part of our history till the Protestantism came around.
So we'll do all that. We'll go over you asked about Hebrew in Beit Din. In the Beit Din, we won't have any Hebrew.
Okay.
We'll have some blessings to say in the mikveh. We'll do it repeat after me style, because even if your Hebrew's perfect, sometimes it can be a nerve-wracking or just super exciting experience and Bima effect happens. So we'll do repeat after me style regardless. And then in the mikveh, and then we'll learn the Aliyah blessings so that you can come up to the Torah whenever you want.
And just in case, our plans sort of pan out, can you do this whilst you're possibly pregnant?
Yes.
Can you do what?
Oh, not for the.
And I'd talk to also to
Not right
to Caitlin
Yeah.
about it too, because she did it while she was pregnant, right? Also might be another reason to depending on how, should all that happen, depending on how you're feeling, you can choose whether we're close by in Cattle Lake, or if you're fit to drive 3.5 hours.
Oh my! If things pan out, my parents have already said they're coming. You can stay for 6 months on a tourist visa.
Hi,
when they go.
Caleb.
Huh?
Caleb says hi.
I thought he was
Caleb?
outside the window there for a second.
No,
Oh.
because I see you guys hi, so I'm calling him out on it. Caleb Aurelian, he's on YouTube.
Oh, he's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Right. And that's right. So we'll talk about mikveh Beit Din. We'll talk about hatafat brit for those who need it, and brit milah for those who might need that. So we'll go through all of the practical everything. We'll talk about where to get a talit if you want to get a talit, and anything else that is going on for you, kashrut wise, Shabbat wise. What do you want your Jewish practice to look like? And is this really a process that you feel like you're ready for and that you want to go through with? So all of those things will be discussed, Hebrew name as well, and I'm excited. So thanks for learning with me. I'll see you all soon. And I'll see you guys in 5 seconds, but Ian.
Sorry,